Upano Valley, Ecuador. In the summer of 2015, a team of scientists flew over the Upano Valley in a Cessna, scanning the ground with a LiDAR system. The plane's lasers bounced off the leaves, hit the ground, and sent back a storm of data points. When the researchers processed that data, the forest floor was stripped away, and a lost world emerged. What they saw was astonishing. Thousands of rectangular earthen platforms, arranged in clusters and rows, stretched across the landscape. Some formed the outlines of plazas. Others connected by long, straight roads, slicing through the jungle like ancient highways. Names began to fill in the map: Sangay, Quilamope, Cunguintz, Nijamench, Copueno. Each one a settlement, each one a missing piece of a forgotten civilization. The LiDAR revealed more than 6,000 platforms in total. Some were the size of small houses, others as big as a soccer field. Between them, causeways and drainage ditches hinted at careful planning. This was not a random scattering of huts. It was a network, engineered, organized, and alive with people for centuries. Radiocarbon dates from nearly 70 samples showed these settlements began around 500 years before the Common Era and thrived until about 600 years after. That means people were building and living here for almost 2,000 years, long before Europeans set foot in the Americas. It is easy to picture these people as simple villagers, but the scale and planning tell another story. The platforms are not just random mounds. They are arranged in neat patterns, some forming massive plazas where hundreds could gather. Roads connect settlements across kilometers, straight as an arrow, as if the builders mapped the land from above. Ditches and canals snake around the platforms, channeling water and keeping the ground dry, even during the rainy season. Archaeologists call this garden urbanism. Instead of stone walls and towers, these cities blended into the forest, mixing houses, gardens, and ceremonial spaces with the wild landscape. The people who lived here shaped their world with earth, not rock. Around 600 years after the Common Era, many sites show a sudden layer of charcoal, as if fire swept through. Was it war, climate, disease, or something else? The answer is still buried in the earth. Today, the Upano Valley faces new threats. Roads, farming, and deforestation creep closer every year. Llanos de Mojos, Bolivia. Rising out of the green floodplains of Bolivia, this landscape looks empty from above. Just rivers, grass, and scattered trees. For centuries, explorers crossed it and saw nothing but wild swamp. Then LiDAR changed everything. In 2022, scientists scanned huge swaths of the Llanos de Mojos with laser pulses. When the data came back, the empty plains were suddenly covered in geometric shapes. Vast mounds, long causeways, and even artificial lakes, all hidden beneath the grass. At the heart of this discovery are two massive sites: Cotoca, covering 147 hectares, and Landivar, stretching over 315 hectares. To give you a sense of scale, that is more than 400 soccer fields combined. LiDAR revealed that these were not just big villages. Each one was a complex city, with U-shaped platform mounds, plazas, and even conical pyramids that rise up to 22 meters tall. The biggest pyramids are as high as a 7-story building. Around them, dozens of smaller settlements dot the landscape, all connected by straight roads and raised causeways. These roads run for kilometers, crossing rivers and wetlands, linking communities like ancient highways. The settlement pattern is not random. There is a clear hierarchy, with major centers surrounded by smaller villages, all organized in a network that covers hundreds of square kilometers. Archaeologists found evidence of water management, reservoirs, canals, and ditches designed to control floods and store water during the dry season. Radiocarbon dating from 144 samples shows these cities were built and used between 500 years before the Common Era and around 1400 years after. For nearly 2,000 years, people engineered this landscape, building one of the largest and most sophisticated urban systems ever found in the Amazon. The architecture of these lost cities is unlike anything found in the Andes or Central America. Instead of stone temples or walls, the Casarabi culture built with earth. U-shaped platform mounds form the core of each city, some topped with conical pyramids that rise above the plains. Standing on one of these mounds, you would see straight roads stretching to the horizon, causeways raised above the floodwaters, and artificial lakes glittering in the sun. Even today, the outlines are hard to spot from the ground. Only LiDAR could reveal the full pattern, showing how everything fits together like a giant puzzle. Some of the canals and reservoirs still hold water, a silent reminder of the engineering skills these people mastered. The big question is, why did these cities disappear? Some clues point to climate change, with long droughts making farming harder. Others suggest disease or social upheaval. Whatever the cause, the Casarabi cities were eventually swallowed by grass and forgotten. Kuhikugu, Upper Xingu, Brazil. Deep in the Upper Xingu region of Brazil, the forest once hid a network of ancient towns that few outsiders could even imagine. For generations, the Kuhikugu people lived among strange mounds and ditches, their stories hinting at a lost world beneath the trees. It was not until scientists teamed up with Kuhikugu elders that the true scale of Kuhikugu began to surface. Using GPS mapping, drone surveys, and remote sensing, archaeologists uncovered more than 20 interconnected settlements, each built around wide circular plazas. Some of these plazas stretch 150 meters across, big enough to fit a whole soccer stadium. The towns are not isolated. They are linked by straight, wide roads, some as broad as 30 meters, cutting through the forest in perfect lines. Defensive ditches and palisade rings surround each village, forming a patchwork of protected spaces. From above, the pattern looks almost like a constellation drawn on the land. At the center sits the main site, known as X11, ringed by smaller towns and hamlets. The entire network covers more than 13,000 square kilometers, an area larger than many countries. Archaeologists dug into the earth and found pottery, charcoal, and food remains that told of a thriving society. Radiocarbon samples show people lived here for centuries, with some settlements dating back nearly 1,000 years. The Kuhikugu oral histories matched the science, describing ancestors who built the plazas, tended gardens, and traveled the roads. This collaboration between indigenous knowledge and modern technology made Kuhikugu one of the best documented lost cities in the Amazon. The design of Kuhikugu is nothing like the stone cities of the Andes or the Maya world. Here, the builders used earth, digging wide moats and stacking soil to form high embankments. Houses circled the central plaza, each facing inward, creating a sense of unity and defense. The roads were more than just paths. They were the lifelines of the region, connecting towns, gardens, and fishing grounds across the forest. Some roads are still visible today, running straight for kilometers, even after centuries of regrowth. One of the most remarkable things about Kuhikugu is its scale. The settlement network stretches across an area larger than some European countries. Archaeologists estimate that at its peak, tens of thousands of people may have lived here, supported by fields, managed forests, and streams. The soil itself tells a story. Layers of dark, fertile earth, terra preta, hint at careful enrichment by human hands. This engineered soil still supports lush growth long after the cities themselves faded away. Geoglyphs of Acre, Brazil, in the far west of Brazil, the Amazon forest hides a secret written in earth. For decades, only a handful of pilots and farmers noticed strange shapes appearing in fields as trees were cleared. Circles, squares, and long, straight ditches carved into the red soil, so huge they can only be seen from above. It was not until scientists used LiDAR and satellite imagery that the true scale of Acre's geoglyphs came into focus. Hundreds, maybe more than 1,000, of these massive earthworks are scattered across the landscape, some stretching over 300 meters wide. The shapes are not random. Some are perfect circles, others crisp squares or rectangles, and a few form complex patterns with multiple rings or straight causeways linking them together. The ditches are deep and wide, often several meters across, and once stood out sharply before centuries of rain and forest softened their edges. UNESCO has added the Acre geoglyphs to its tentative list of World Heritage Sites, calling them one of the most remarkable archaeological landscapes in the Amazon. Archaeologists dug into the ditches and found charcoal, pottery, and ancient soil layers. Radiocarbon dates show that many of these geoglyphs were built between 2,000 and 700 years ago, long before Europeans arrived in South America. Some sites may be even older, with evidence of human land use stretching back 10,000 years. But what were they for? The mystery remains. Most geoglyphs show little sign of permanent settlement inside the ditches. Some researchers believe they were ceremonial gathering places, built for rituals, feasts, or meetings that brought people together from across the region. Others think they also helped manage water or mark territory. LiDAR has given archaeologists a new way to see these geoglyphs, even when they are hidden under thick forest or overgrown fields. By stripping away the trees in the digital model, researchers can spot faint ditches and patterns that would be invisible from the ground. Some of the most surprising finds are geoglyphs that were never cleared by farmers, still buried under living rainforest, untouched for centuries. Each new scan adds more shapes to the map, revealing that the network of earthworks is even bigger than anyone thought. The construction of these geoglyphs took enormous effort. Imagine teams of people digging deep ditches, moving tons of earth, and carving perfect circles or squares hundreds of meters across, all without metal tools or modern machines. The soil inside the ditches often contains layers of charcoal, showing that fire played a role, maybe in clearing the land or as part of ceremonies. Some sites show evidence of long-term gatherings, with pottery fragments and food remains hinting at feasts or rituals held in these open spaces. Llanos and Guapore region, Bolivia and Brazil. In the borderlands between Bolivia and Brazil, the Amazon's vastness hides stories that even seasoned explorers have missed. For decades, the landscape here seemed like endless wetlands and tangled forest. But in 2011, the PABAM project brought LiDAR to these forgotten plains. The name stands for Proyecto Arqueológico Boliviano Alemán en Mojos. Flying low over the Llanos and Guapore rivers, scientists sent out laser pulses that mapped the ground in incredible detail. When they looked at the data, they did not just see rivers and floodplains. They saw the faint outlines of ancient cities. The LiDAR scans uncovered a network of earthworks, mounds, ditches, and causeways sprawling across the landscape. Some of the sites were already known from ground surveys, but LiDAR revealed just how many there were and how they fit together. Massive platforms rose above the wetland, connected by straight roads that cut through the forest. Defensive ditches and water channels showed careful planning. Some earthworks formed clusters, while others stood alone, but all pointed to a lost civilization that engineered the land on a grand scale. The PABAM team, led by Heiko Prumers and colleagues from the German Archaeological Institute, combined these scans with old excavation reports and new fieldwork. They mapped dozens of sites, some with ceremonial mounds, others with ring ditches or raised fields. Archaeologists found pottery, charcoal, and food remains buried in the soil, and radiocarbon dates placed the occupation of these sites as far back as 2,000 years ago. The LiDAR results confirmed what local stories had hinted at for generations. The Llanos and Guapore were once home to thriving communities, their cities now hidden beneath the green. The story of Llanos and Guapore is not just about old ruins. It is about how people adapted to a challenging landscape, These cities were built in a region that floods every year, turning dry ground into shallow lakes for months at a time. To survive, ancient Amazonians engineered their environment. They built raised fields to keep crops dry, dug canals to drain water, and shaped mounds for houses and ceremonies. The LiDAR scans showed how these features fit together. Networks of fields, villages, and roads designed to work with the rhythms of the river. Pottery fragments tell of cooking and feasting, while layers of charcoal hint at controlled burns to clear land or mark ritual events. Some sites have evidence of fish traps and artificial ponds, showing how people harvested food from both land and water. The settlements range from small hamlets to large centers with ceremonial mounds, each one connected by causeways that stayed above the floodwaters. Radiocarbon dating shows that these cities were occupied for centuries, thriving from about 2,000 years ago until well after the arrival of Europeans. Today, the remains of these cities are threatened by deforestation and modern development. Roads and farms creep closer every year, putting ancient sites at risk before they can be fully explored. Santa Teresinha, near Santarém. In the upper Amazon near Santarém, strange patterns have been hiding in plain sight for centuries. From the ground, the forest looks like any other. Dense, tangled, alive with birds and insects. But from above, the story changes. Satellite images and aerial photos reveal a landscape dotted with perfect circles, rectangles, and straight lines, some so large they only make sense from the sky. The most famous of these is the so-called crop circles of Santa Teresinha, first brought to the world's attention by a National Geographic photo in 2010. These geometric earthworks are not just random shapes. Many are connected by straight roads or avenues, forming networks that stretch for kilometers. Some circles are surrounded by ditches and raised banks, while others are linked to rectangular enclosures. Archaeologists believe these patterns are the remains of ancient mound villages, settlements built by people who shaped the land with earth, not stone. The circles could be village plazas, the rectangles ceremonial spaces, and the roads the arteries that connected communities. LiDAR and drone surveys have changed the game. By peeling back the forest canopy in digital models, researchers have found even more rings and rectangles, many still hidden under uncut jungle. Each new scan adds to the map, showing that the Santa Teresinha region is part of a much larger network of geometric earthworks spread across western Amazonia. Excavations at similar sites have uncovered pottery, charcoal, and layers of dark, fertile soil, terra preta, evidence of people living, farming, and gathering in these places for centuries. Radiocarbon dates from the region suggest that some of these earthworks were built more than 2,000 years ago, making them among the oldest engineered landscapes in the Amazon. The meaning behind these circles and rectangles is still debated. Some archaeologists think the circular enclosures were the heart of ancient villages, where people built their homes around a central plaza. The rectangular earthworks might have been used for ceremonies, feasts, or as meeting places for different groups. The straight roads that link these sites suggest a network of allied communities, each with its own traditions, but connected by shared rituals and trade. What is clear is that these were not isolated farmers. They were part of a much bigger story, a civilization that managed the land, built with precision, and created patterns visible from the sky. Belterra Plateau and Tapajos region. Just beyond the famous circles of Santa Teresinha lies another revelation. The Belterra Plateau and the broader Tapajos region near Santarém have long been known for indigenous settlements along the riverbanks. But LiDAR scans revealed something unexpected. The settlements extended far into the densely forested interior, much deeper than anyone had guessed. The scans showed non-randomly distributed depressions, upland sites, and networks of paths cutting through areas that seemed untouched. Researchers studying the Tapajos National Forest used LiDAR data to map pre-Columbian settlements dating from around 1,300 years after the Common Era. The technology revealed sites that ground surveys had missed entirely, hidden beneath thick canopy and centuries of growth. These upland settlements were connected to the riverine communities, forming a much larger network than previously understood. The people here were not confined to the water's edge. They shaped the entire landscape, from river to deep forest. The discovery challenges old assumptions about where people could live in the Amazon. For years, archaeologists believed that large populations needed rivers for fishing and transport, and that the interior forest was too poor to support many people. But LiDAR showed that ancient Amazonians were more adaptable than that. They built in the uplands, managed the forest, and created fertile soils that still support growth today. The Tapajos region is now understood as a major center of pre-Columbian activity, with settlements stretching from the rivers deep into what was thought to be pristine wilderness, terra preta sites. There is a secret running through the Amazon's soil, a dark, rich layer that stands out from the pale, sandy ground all around it. Locals call it terra preta, or black earth. For years, scientists wondered how patches of such fertile soil could exist in a rainforest known for poor, acidic dirt. The answer, revealed by a mix of fieldwork, remote sensing, and LiDAR, is that terra preta is not natural. It was made by people thousands of years ago. LiDAR surveys and satellite mapping have shown that these black earth patches are not random. They are clustered along rivers, often near raised fields, mounds, and ancient roads. Some studies predict that terra preta covers more than 150,000 square kilometers, about 3% of the entire lowland Amazon. That is an area bigger than many countries. These soils are packed with charcoal, pottery shards, animal bones, and plant remains. They hold much more phosphorus, carbon, and nutrients than the surrounding forest. In some places, the black earth is more than 2 meters deep. Archaeologists believe terra preta was created through centuries of burning, composting, and careful management. People added kitchen waste, ash, and even broken pottery to the soil, slowly turning poor dirt into a living engine for crops. Radiocarbon dates from these sites show that the process started more than 2,000 years ago and continued for centuries. Where you find terra preta, you also find signs of ancient fields, causeways, and settlements, sometimes mapped by LiDAR as faint lines and mounds hidden under the trees. This black earth is living proof that the Amazon was not an untouched wilderness, but a landscape shaped and improved by human hands. The discovery of terra preta has changed everything we thought we knew about the Amazon. It is not just about fertile soil. It is a sign of massive, organized societies. Some scientists use the spread of terra preta to estimate the number of people who once lived here. By mapping the black earth and using radiocarbon dates, researchers suggest that millions may have called the Amazon home before Europeans arrived. That is a population rivaling the great civilizations of the ancient world. These people were not just surviving. They were thriving, building cities, roads, and fields in places where outsiders once said no one could live. LiDAR and remote sensing have helped scientists find hidden patterns in the landscape. Raised fields, causeways, and canals show up as faint lines and bumps, even under thick forest. In some places, the outlines of ancient cities are still visible, connected by roads and surrounded by dark earth. Circular and rectangular mound villages. Beyond the famous Geoglyphs of Acre, LiDAR has revealed another layer of ancient settlement, entire villages built on earthen mounds, arranged in patterns that speak of careful planning and social order. In the border region of Acre, Amazonas, and Rondônia, helicopter-mounted LiDAR surveys uncovered 25 circular mound villages and 11 rectangular mound villages dating from 1300 to 1700 years after the Common Era. These villages were not scattered randomly. Many were arranged like rays of the sun around central plazas, with individual mounds forming the outline of each community. The circular villages often had mounds placed at regular intervals, creating a ring around an open space. The rectangular villages showed a different pattern, with mounds aligned in rows or grids. These layouts suggest that different groups had different ideas about how to organize space, or that the shapes reflected social hierarchies and ritual practices. Some of the villages were connected by ancient road networks, linking communities across the forest. The roads ran straight for kilometers, raised above the ground to stay dry during floods. Archaeologists found pottery, tools, and food remains at these mound villages, showing that people lived here for generations. The mounds themselves were built up over time, layer by layer, as families added earth and rebuilt their homes. The diversity of village shapes, circles, rectangles, and even mixed patterns shows that the ancient Amazon was not a single culture, but a mosaic of different peoples, each with their own traditions and ways of shaping the land. Colonial Portuguese settlement. Not all lost cities in the Amazon are ancient. As part of the Amazonia Revelada project, researchers announced the discovery of a lost colonial city dating back to the 18th century, at least 250 years old. This was a Portuguese settlement, known from historical maps, but whose precise location had remained elusive for generations. LiDAR finally revealed its exact position, hidden beneath regrowth and tangled vegetation. The settlement featured roads, building foundations, and even remnants of fortifications, all laid out in the orderly style of colonial planning. This discovery shows that LiDAR is not just a tool for finding pre-Columbian cities. It can also recover more recent history, filling in gaps in the colonial record and helping researchers understand how Europeans and indigenous peoples interacted during the early centuries of contact. The Portuguese settlement is a reminder that the Amazon has been shaped by many waves of human activity. From ancient engineers building with earth to colonial powers carving out new towns, each era left its mark on the land. LiDAR helps us see all of these layers at once, creating a complete picture of the Amazon's human history. The discovery also highlights the importance of protecting colonial sites. Just like their ancient counterparts, these settlements are threatened by deforestation, farming, and development. Without careful mapping and legal protection, they could be lost before their stories are fully told. The 10 lost cities we have explored today are just the beginning. LiDAR technology is still revealing new sites every year, and each discovery adds another chapter to the story of the Amazon. These cities prove that the rainforest was never empty. It was home to millions of people who built roads, pyramids, plazas, and water systems that rival the great civilizations of the ancient world. They shaped the land with ingenuity and care, creating landscapes that still influence the forest today. But revealing these cities brings new challenges. When a lost city is uncovered, the world's attention rushes in, and so do new dangers. The Upano Valley in Ecuador is a perfect example. After LiDAR scans uncovered thousands of ancient platforms, plazas, and roads, headlines called it one of the greatest archaeological finds in Amazonian history. But almost immediately, new threats emerged. Roads and farms began to creep closer. Deforestation, erosion, and even illegal mining put these newly exposed sites at risk before they could be fully studied or protected. Local archaeologists and heritage officials now race against time, trying to map and safeguard what remains before it is lost again, this time possibly forever. This is not just a problem in Ecuador. All across the Amazon, LiDAR discoveries can attract looters, land grabbers, and developers. When high-resolution maps and coordinates are published online, they can become a treasure map for those seeking artifacts or land. Archaeologists and indigenous communities are calling for better protection plans. Some recommend releasing only low-resolution or blurred versions of sensitive maps to the public, while keeping detailed data restricted. Others argue for community-led monitoring, with local people trained to watch over sites and report threats. International guidelines are starting to catch up. Before flying drones or sharing maps, researchers are urged to get free, prior, and informed consent from local communities. Sensitive sites, like sacred places or burial grounds, should be redacted or protected with digital labels that limit access. The lesson is clear. Revealing a lost city is just the beginning. Protecting it is an even bigger challenge. The future of Amazonian discovery will depend on finding the right balance between sharing knowledge and protecting what is found. The Amazon's lost cities are no longer invisible, but their future is still uncertain. Protecting them will require science, law, and respect for the people whose history lies beneath the trees.